I've never smoked a day in my life. I don't even like the smell. My mom used to, before she quit, so maybe that's part of it. The old yellow wallpaper in our kitchen still has that baked-in stink, the kind that doesn't wash out no matter how many vinegar solutions you try. But still, every year like clockwork, he'd ask me, "Hey, got a cigarette?" He always said it the same way. Calm, casual, like we'd met before and he expected me to laugh or dig through my coat pockets and say, "Yeah, man, here you go." But I never did. I just said no and waited for him to leave, which he always did. Eventually, the first time I saw him, I was 14. It was one of those bad winters. Icy, blackouts, dead trees crashing on power lines every other night. We live in an old 2-bedroom house at the edge of our town. Not remote, not isolated, but no sidewalks either. Just drainage ditches and open air. That winter, we couldn't afford to keep the heat up past 60. I had a space heater in my room and a stack of hand-me-downs from my uncle. I remember I'd fallen asleep in 2 hoodies and still woke up cold. It was around 1 a.m. when I got up to pee. On my way back to bed, I passed my window, and that's when I saw him, standing at the edge of our driveway. Faded green parka, maybe 50, tallish but hard to say. He was holding something. At first, I thought it was a flashlight. But then he raised it, clicked, and a faint light blinked out. A photo. He took a photo of our house. One click, then he just stood there for a few seconds, breathing in the cold. I ducked down. My first instinct wasn't fear, not really. Just confusion. I thought maybe he was casing the place or just lost. I didn't tell my mom. I don't know why. I guess I didn't want her to worry. By morning, he was gone. I wrote it off. The next year, it snowed the week before Christmas break. I was out shoveling the front path around dusk. And there he was again, closer this time, on the shoulder of the road, facing me. Green parka, same faded blue jeans, torn above the knee. Same stiff stance like he was bracing against the wind. Only there wasn't any wind that day. He waited until I noticed him, then took a step forward. "Hey," he said, "got a cigarette?" I paused. Maybe he didn't remember me. Maybe he thought I was someone else. "No," I said. "I'm 16. He blinked, then smirked, just barely. His lips barely moved. "Right?" he said, and turned around. He walked maybe 10 feet, stopped, and looked back again. Then he kept walking. I don't want this to sound overblown. He didn't attack me. He didn't touch me, or yell, or make threats. But the way he showed up, only in winter, always in front of my house, always asking the same question, it started to get into my head. By the time I was 16, I was already tall, 6 feet 7 inches, and still growing. My friends called me Giraffe Boy. I had tendon pain in both knees and could barely fit into my own car, which I shared with my cousin. But I still shoveled the snow every time it dropped more than 2 inches, because my mom couldn't anymore. And every time I went outside, I checked the street first. And eventually, he came back. That third time, I was ready. I had my phone out. Video on. It was just after 7 p.m. Pitch dark, but with the blue-white glow of the snow. The air was heavy. You know that feeling right before more snow falls? The stillness? That's when I heard the boots. Not crunching on our driveway, but pacing. Back and forth. Across the street. He wasn't asking for a cigarette anymore. Just walking. Slowly. In front of the vacant lot where Mr. Geiger used to keep his plow equipment. I crouched behind our truck, zoomed in. I swear to God, the man was talking. Quietly. Not to me. Into something in his jacket. Bluetooth headset, maybe? He held one hand in his pocket like he was pressing a mic button. I couldn't hear the words. Just his breath and that same slack jaw as he walked a tight 20-foot loop in the snow. Back and forth. Back and forth. I didn't post the video. I don't know why. Something about it felt wrong. I deleted it after a few days. Told myself it was probably a coincidence. A weird guy passing through. This is the part where people usually stop listening. They say, "So what? Creepy guy. Just call the cops." But he didn't do anything. He was always gone in minutes. He never touched me or stepped onto our property. So I started watching for him. Every winter. I even started checking public records at the library. It became this obsession, I guess. I looked for reports of loitering, disturbances, anything. Nothing came up. So I tried a new angle, property records. That's when I saw it. Our house had a different owner until 22 years ago. Man named Peter Cole. The record showed a foreclosure in 2003 after a domestic incident. I dug deeper. A court transcript. sealed in most places, but the summary was still available. Cole's wife and 15-year-old daughter were both found dead in our basement. Carbon monoxide poisoning, ruled accidental. Some speculation of a faulty furnace install, but the documents were vague. No criminal charges filed. The man moved out and disappeared. My hands were shaking when I read it. The daughter would have been about my age when she died. This winter, he came back again. I hadn't seen him since last year. I thought maybe he'd moved on or gotten arrested or even died. But I was wrong. I woke up at 3:18 a.m. on a Thursday. No noise, just awake. I looked toward the window like I always did. And there he was, closer than ever, at the edge of our yard. Green parka, ripped jeans, standing still in fresh snow, no tracks behind him, like he'd just appeared. He held something in each hand. In his right, a cigarette. In his left, a lit match. Neither moved. He didn't bring them together. He just stood there, breathing, staring directly at my window. At me. I crouched low, heart punching behind my ribs. I reached for my phone and realized it was dead. Battery drained. He didn't knock. Didn't say anything. Just held his hands up like a pantomime, cigarette and match, as if offering me a choice. Or maybe a memory. Then he mouthed something. I couldn't hear it, but I could read his lips. You're taller than I thought you'd be. Then he dropped the match in the snow and walked backward into the dark. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I didn't go to school. I didn't tell my mom. And I still don't smoke. But every time I go outside now, I feel like I should have one, just in case. Because if he ever comes back, I think next time he won't ask. I've stayed in dozens of hotels, sketchy ones, mostly. I'm not picky. I'm a traveling tattoo artist trying to build a name, which means I go where the ink money is and sleep where the booking apps point me. But this one was different. It's not the worst place I've stayed, just the one I still think about every time I check into a room alone. The hallway, the silence, the way the carpet muffled his footsteps until it didn't. Let me back up. I'd flown into Toronto that Thursday for Ink Vault, my first big convention. It's a weekend-long tattoo expo with booths, flash sales, live demos, and hundreds of other artists from across Canada and the US. I'd landed a last-minute spot thanks to someone dropping out and scraped together every penny I had to book my flights and printing materials. The plan was to split an Airbnb with another artist I knew online. Except when I landed, she texted, "Emergency." I bailed. "Can't come. Sorry." So I was stuck. Thousands of miles from home, jet-lagged, and now without a place to stay. It was already 8:30 p.m. I grabbed a burger, pulled out my phone, and scrolled through cheap hotels until I found one still accepting walk-ins. West Junction Plaza Inn. The name sounded okay. The photos looked dated but clean. Lobby, bed, small breakfast nook. A little grainy, but I've stayed in worse. It was $72 a night, attached to a strip mall just off a main road. I figured I'd be fine. The Uber driver side-eyed me when we pulled in. The plaza was half abandoned. The strip mall had a vape store, an empty Dollarama, and something with blacked-out windows called Spicy Moon Thai. The hotel was tacked onto the end of the row, a short, rectangular building with red brick and a big faded sign. West Junction Plaza Inn. Weekly and monthly rates available. The man behind the desk looked half asleep. He asked for ID, printed out a form for me to sign, and handed me a keycard. No instructions, no smile. I made my way upstairs. The hallway smelled like cheap air freshener and old carpet. The kind of place that was once nice for the price, but hadn't been deep cleaned since 2009. A vending machine hummed beside the icebox at the far end. But the door locked. The bed wasn't horrible. I told myself, 3 nights, then you're home. The convention was everything I'd hoped for. I even got my first out-of-province commission. A couple from Ottawa asked me to do matching botanical pieces on their forearms. I spent the whole day sketching, networking, and sweating through my hoodie under hot lights. By the time I got back to the hotel, it was close to midnight. I took the bus most of the way, but the walk from the stop was longer than I remembered. When I entered the lobby, the front desk was empty. No night clerk, no music or chatter, just fluorescent light buzzing overhead and the faint click of my boots on cheap linoleum. I swiped my keycard at the stairwell door and stepped into the hallway. That's when I saw him. The breakfast room is on the left just after the front desk, a tiny room with 2 card tables and a hot water machine. I hadn't noticed it before, but this time, I caught movement in the dark. Someone was sitting inside. The lights were off, but the door was cracked. I paused. The man didn't move. At first, I figured maybe he was scrolling his phone or charging something in the outlet. But as I passed the doorway, I felt eyes on me. Not the casual kind, not the sleepy kind. The kind that knows who you are and what room you're going to. I sped up. The hallway was longer than I remembered. The lights were dimmer, some flickering, a couple out completely. My room was 217, at the very end of the left wing. I kept my head down and walked fast. Then I heard it. The door behind me creaked open. Footsteps. Not fast. Measured. Soft. I glanced over my shoulder. The man was following me. He was maybe 30s. Pale. Shaved head. Wearing a denim jacket over a gray hoodie. His hands were in his pockets, and he walked slow, almost relaxed. I turned a corner. 2 doors down, I paused and looked back. Nothing. Empty hallway. Then I saw movement. He leaned out from behind one of the doorways. Just his head and shoulder. Watching me. I felt my stomach twist. I started walking faster, almost jogging. I didn't want to run and draw attention, but I wanted to be in my room. Now, I turned again, peeked back. He was out in the hallway now, walking again. Not rushing, just pacing me. His footsteps stayed in rhythm with mine. Then, when I stopped to check again, he vanished. Gone. I held my breath. Then he darted out from the opposite wall, crouching low like he'd just played hide and seek. I ran. My keycard nearly slipped from my fingers as I shoved it into the door for 217. I could hear him walking behind me. Still not running, just getting closer. The green light flashed. I slammed the door shut, locked the bolt, and flipped the security latch. My chest was heaving. I turned off the light, grabbed my phone, opened the camera, and quietly approached the peephole. He was standing right there, less than a foot away. I held my breath. He leaned in close, so close his face distorted through the fisheye lens. Then he turned sideways and began pacing back and forth in front of my door. Step, step, stop, listen, step, step, crouch, listen. I texted the front desk. No reply. I tried calling the hotel number listed online. It went straight to voicemail. I tried 911, but the signal flickered and the call dropped before it connected. The walls felt thinner by the minute. I checked the latch 3 times. I slid a chair under the handle. I didn't sleep. He left eventually, or I think he did. I didn't check again. The next morning, I went down to the front desk. A new woman was working. I told her what happened. She frowned like I was exaggerating. We don't have security cameras in the halls. That's a privacy issue, she said. But I can take a report if you want. I did. She wrote it on a sticky note and stuck it to the monitor. That afternoon, I skipped the second day of the convention and searched the hallways. I found a staff-only door near the ice machine. Unlocked. Inside was an empty room. Half-stripped walls, mattress foam on the floor, a pile of old blankets. The smell was sickly sweet and sour, like food rotting under heat. Someone had been living in there. I took photos. Showed the woman at the desk. She looked at me, then at the photos. Must have been left by a contractor. We've had renovations going on. She didn't sound convinced. Or maybe she didn't care. That night, I slept in my car. Parked right outside the hotel door locked, keys ready. At 6 a.m., I got out to grab my bags from the room. As I passed the cracked stairwell door, I caught a glimpse of something in the shadows. A figure, half hidden behind the railing. Watching. I haven't gone back to Toronto since. I still tour for conventions, but I triple-check every hotel now. I read every review, inspect every hallway. I wedge chairs against doors. I leave lights on, and I never assume I'm alone. Because he didn't want my money. He didn't want my things. He wanted me scared, and it worked. I took the trip because I needed to clear my head. After the divorce, I couldn't stand my apartment. Every corner felt tight. Every sound in the hallway made me tense. So I decided to drive north, up past Cadillac, past the last decent gas station, and into the forest where I used to hike with Aaron back when things were good. The trail wasn't popular. That was the appeal. No tourists with Bluetooth speakers or weekend warriors on dirt bikes. Just soft pine, unmarked loops, and old sand roads that disappeared into themselves. The state park website barely mentioned it. No trailhead signs, no ranger station. Just a weather-worn map tacked to a board near a gravel pull-in. No reception either. Not a single bar since I passed the last cell tower. It was exactly what I wanted. Until I didn't. It was mid-October. Cold enough to keep bugs down, warm enough to stay outside for hours. I had a flask, beef jerky, and a paper map from the state website. The kind you print out and fold, not totally to scale, but better than nothing. The parking area could fit maybe 4 cars. Mine was the only one there. I strapped on my small pack and started down the sandy path. The trail forked early, and I took the right. It looped south, then curled west around a dry ravine. I figured I'd hike 5 miles out, take a long break, and come back before dusk. That was the plan. The forest was quiet. No wind. Just dry pine needles and the occasional tick of twigs cracking under my boots. I walked in silence for about 2 hours. I didn't see a single person. I didn't even feel another person. If you've ever hiked alone in a truly remote forest, you'll know what I mean. It's not just quiet, it's clean. No low hum of civilization. No road noise. No voices. You can hear your own heart if you stop moving. So when I heard something, I noticed it right away. It wasn't dramatic, just a click. Like a twig snapping under pressure. Not from me. It came from somewhere to the left, in the dense brush below a hill. I paused, stared. Nothing moved. I waited for 30 seconds, maybe more. Sometimes deer freeze when they know they've been spotted. But there was no rustle, no sound. So I kept going, brushing it off. I was probably being jumpy. After all, I'd been stressed for weeks, and I hadn't slept well since Aaron left. About 20 minutes later, I reached a clearing where 2 trails intersected. One path veered off toward an old fire access road, the same sand road I'd parked off earlier. It was rutted and overgrown. I remembered Aaron joking about it once, calling it a driveway for serial killers. I smiled at the memory, turned away from the road, and followed the loop back toward my car. That's when I saw it. An electric car. Small, black, modern. It was parked at an angle across the fire road. No license plate on the front. No sound. Just sitting there. I don't even know how it got that far in. The road was soft sand and full of debris. You'd need an SUV or a truck with good clearance. But this thing looked sleek, spotless. The windows were tinted. I couldn't see if anyone was inside. I stood still. The car didn't move. I waited. Nothing. Then, after a full minute, the driver's side door opened. A man stepped out. Middle-aged. Shaved head. Mirrored sunglasses. Wearing a heavy black coat. Zipped to the top despite the mild weather. He didn't look at me. He just walked slowly around the car, got back in, closed the door, and shifted into reverse. The car backed up 10 feet. Then stopped again. Engine still silent. I waited for him to drive off. But he didn't. He just sat there, facing me at an angle. I decided to take the long way back. I bushwhacked through some dry bramble and found a game trail that paralleled the main loop. It added about a mile to my route, but kept me out of sight from the sand road. I told myself it was paranoia. Maybe the guy was just lost. Maybe he had GPS that told him the road was clear and got stuck. Maybe he was waiting for a tow. But the image of him silently backing up, then sitting still again, it didn't sit right. I picked up the pace. That's when I heard the second noise. Rustling. Definitely not wind. About 50 yards back. I turned quickly. Nothing. But the sound came again a few minutes later. This time, ahead of me. Same crunch of dried needles. Same soft snap of underbrush. Not constant, rhythmic. Someone was moving when I wasn't. It's hard to explain how it escalated, because nothing really happened. That's what makes it worse. I'd glance down the slope to my left and see nothing. Then look right and catch a glimpse of something dark behind a pine trunk. A coat, maybe. A leg. A shadow. Then silence. Then it would happen again. Never close. Never chasing. But matching my pace. I changed direction again. This time cutting uphill onto a ridge, using rocks and steep brush to break line of sight. 10 minutes later, I saw him again. Standing down below. Between the trees. Not walking. Just waiting. He hadn't called out once. No, hey man, you lost. No attempt to close the distance. Just there. I tried to make a plan. The sun was getting low. I needed to get back to the trailhead, but I didn't want to lead him to my car. So I made one more detour, a long switchback that looped around a small pond. I moved fast, keeping trees between us. My heart was pounding. As I crossed a down log near the water's edge, I slipped and fell. Not hard, but enough to get mud up my sleeves. I stood up and saw something in the dirt. Footprints. Not mine. They were older, but the shape was clear. Heavy tread, like boots. The tracks came from the woods and followed the same deer path I was on. I looked ahead. Another set. Fresher. Slightly off my own. Like someone was walking parallel. I stood there shaking, staring at the mud, the trees, the silence. I wasn't alone. Hadn't been for a while. The last half-mile to the trailhead was a blur. I stopped looking back. I just moved. Legs numb, mouth dry, fists clenched around my pack straps. When I reached the clearing, I nearly cried. My car was still there, untouched. No other vehicles. But about 30 feet past the lot, parked just off the tree line, was the electric car. Passenger door open. No one inside. No tracks in the sand. I didn't look twice. I unlocked my car, started it, and drove straight out without stopping. Back in town, an hour south, I called the county sheriff. They sent a deputy to meet me at a Tim Hortons. I gave a full report. The car, the man, the pursuit. I showed them the map, the GPS data from my watch, the photos of the footprints. The deputy, a young guy, maybe mid-20s, nodded slowly. "You're not the first to say something like this," he said. "That area doesn't have much patrol. No cameras. Hard to pin anything down." I asked if there'd been assaults. Abductions. He wouldn't answer. Just took down my info and said, "We'll keep an eye out." That was a year ago. I haven't hiked alone since. Not really. Not off-grid. Sometimes, when I'm walking a trail and it's quiet, I still glance sideways. Not at what I can see, but at what I can't. The gaps between trees. The places I'm not watching. I still think about the mirrored sunglasses. The way he circled, then waited. How he never said a single word. I think about what would have happened if I'd stopped. If I'd hesitated. If I'd made camp for the night. And I wonder, how many people never got to report him at all? I took the job because I needed stability. After my last commission fell through, I was left with an overdrawn account, 2 months behind on rent, and a fridge full of condiments. I told myself it would just be for the holidays, a temporary thing while I lined up gallery work or freelance gigs again. But 6 months later, I was still behind the counter at Stencil and Hue, helping high schoolers find charcoal and explaining to overexcited parents why their kindergartner didn't need professional oil brushes. It wasn't all bad. Quiet most weekdays. Nice coworkers. A decent staff discount. Then he came in. He first showed up on a Tuesday afternoon in early April. Older than most of our customers. Mid to late 30s, maybe 40. Slender build, dark buzzed hair, wireframe glasses that never quite sat straight on his face. He walked slowly, like he was carefully placing each step. Wore a green windbreaker zipped up to his throat, even though it was 68 degrees out. He waited for me to finish helping a woman with canvas boards, then approached the counter. "Hi," he said. "Do you know much about sketching?" I gave the usual pitch. HB pencils, Strathmore pads, tortillons, kneaded erasers. He nodded along silently, then asked if I'd ever used Micron pens. I told him I had. He seemed socially off, but not rude, not threatening. He asked a few more questions about ink drying time, which paper worked best for fine line, then thanked me and left. Didn't buy anything. I didn't think twice. He came back the next day, waited until I was alone again, then approached with the same questions. Same tone, like he wanted to replay our conversation. This time, he bought a single pen. When I rang him up, he stared at the name tag on my apron. Maya, he read. That's a nice name. I smiled politely, tucked my hair behind my ear, and moved on. He started coming in once a week, then twice, then 4 times in 10 days. Always looking for me, always timing it when I worked the afternoon shifts. One day, I was in the back restocking markers when I heard him asking my coworker Liz, "Is Maya here?" She said I was on break. He waited. His questions got less specific. "How do you balance shading? What inspires you to draw?" Once, he asked if I ever sketched people on the train. Another time, he said, "You look like someone who dreams in line work." It made me uncomfortable, but he never said anything overtly inappropriate. I told myself maybe he was just lonely, harmless, a late-blooming art student. Then, in early May, he brought me a gift. It was my birthday. I hadn't told anyone at work, but Liz brought cupcakes and word got out. Around 3 p.m., he came in with a paper envelope. Thin, folded precisely. He handed it to me, smiling. Happy birthday, Maya. I opened it. Inside was a pencil sketch of me. Not a caricature. Not from memory. It was me behind the counter, head tilted, lips pursed. Exactly how I looked when concentrating on inventory. The angle was specific, from the side, slightly elevated. It made my stomach twist. It was drawn on the back of a scrap paper, a long receipt roll with faded ink and a coffee ring. I recognized it. I'd tossed it months ago when cleaning the back room. He'd pulled it from the trash. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed every moment I could remember with him. How long had he been watching me? Had he followed me after work? Had he gone through more than just the trash? I started walking home a different route, checking over my shoulder, locking the laundromat door twice before bed. The next time he came in, I told him, politely, that I had a boyfriend. It was a lie. I made up a name, told him we'd just moved in together. He didn't get angry, just smiled, nodded slowly, then said, "He's lucky. I hope he sees that." For 2 weeks, he didn't show. I started to breathe easier. Then Liz came into the break room with a weird look on her face. "Hey, that guy? With the sketch pad? He was in here Monday asking where you were. Said you'd promised to show him something?" I shook my head. I told him you were off. He looked annoyed, left without saying anything. He came back again Thursday. I was off. He asked for me again. That weekend, I called the manager. His name was Drew. He was younger than me. Nice guy, but conflict avoidant. I told him everything. The birthday drawing, the garbage paper, the waiting. He frowned, arms folded. "Has he threatened you?" "Not exactly, but okay. Unfortunately, unless he's making threats or harassing other customers, I can't ban him." I stared at him. "He's stalking me, Drew." "I get it," he said. "I do. But we're not allowed to ban people just for making you uncomfortable." He offered to adjust my shifts. I declined, because that felt like giving ground. The next Monday, I found something at the sketchbook display. It was subtle, tucked between 2 spiral-bound pads. One of our Polaroid selfies. We keep them on a small staff board in the break room. It's dumb, but we each took one when we got hired. Mine was torn down the center, folded neatly, placed with care. I started documenting everything. Dates, times, what he said. I bought pepper spray, started keeping it in my apron. I told Liz to text me when he came in. For almost a month, he didn't show. Then, one rainy night near closing, I took out the trash. The alley behind the store is narrow, wedged between our building and a boarded-up cafe. You have to kick the door open with your foot, or it closes behind you. That night, I barely stepped out when I heard it. A voice, just above a whisper. "Happy belated." I froze. The door clicked shut behind me. I spun around. No one there, but something fluttered to the ground near my foot. A piece of paper, damp, smeared, but still legible. A pencil sketch. Me asleep, head tilted, hair spread across the pillow, eyes closed, drawn from above, like someone had stood over my bed. I ran back inside. Drew shrugged when I told him, "We can file a report, but unless he did something here, we can't." "I'm not asking permission," I said. I filed a police report that night. They took it down, said they'd keep an eye out. But the man, he never returned. Not when I was working. Maybe he knew the line had been crossed. Maybe he got bored. Maybe he just switched tactics. It's been months. I left the store. I freelance again. Still walk to the laundromat. Still make coffee at the same corner cafe. But sometimes, late at night, when I glance out my apartment window, I see someone standing across the street, just beyond the glow of the streetlight. Not moving, just watching. And even if it's not him, it always could be. It started with a Snapchat I didn't recognize. "Adam, would love you. Hey, smiley face." I didn't open it right away. I figured it was a bot or one of those thirst traps that sends fake links. But something about the name and the lowercase tone made me click out of curiosity. The first snap was just a selfie. Grainy, badly lit. A guy, maybe late 20s, buzzed hair, pale skin, slight smile. Looked like it was taken at night. No caption, just his face. I closed the app and didn't respond. The next day, I got another. "You look really good in gray." Just saying. That one freaked me out. I had worn a gray hoodie the day before. No mirror selfie. No post. Nothing public. Just me, walking around campus and grabbing coffee before class. I blocked the account. Thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. The next message came from C, as 3Y_fan1. then just underscore shadow, then I see again. All different usernames, but always the same tone. Casual at first, overly familiar. LOL, I saw that smile. You smiled at me. Your girlfriend doesn't really get you, huh? Bet she doesn't know about me. Each time I blocked. Each time a new one appeared. They used bitmojis that looked like my face. They followed the same friends I had. They sent snaps from my campus. One of them sent a blurry shot of me exiting the cafe I worked at. I showed my girlfriend, Lena. She was concerned, but thought it might be someone from school messing with me. I reported the accounts to Snapchat. Nothing happened. Then came the letters. Not emails. Not messages. Letters. Handwritten. Blue ink on lined notebook paper, folded into clean thirds like love notes from middle school. The first one showed up in my apartment mailbox. No envelope. Just wedged in like a flyer. Casey, you don't have to pretend. I know you see me. I've seen how you look when she's not around. You light up. You're freer. You're already mine. You've been mine. There was no name, but I knew it was from Adam. I knew because of how the final line was written. I'll be closer soon. The lowercase I. Always. A week later, Lena called me in a panic. Someone had left a letter in her family's mailbox. Hand-delivered, not mailed. It was worse. He's not safe with you. He's not yours. You're poison in his life. I've watched you. I know your routines. You're a barrier. Barriers break. Her parents filed a police report. We added mine to it. They took copies of the letters, asked for any online evidence. I showed them the accounts. I explained everything. The photos, the names, the way he'd mimicked my friend list and walked around campus. They wrote it all down. But nothing happened. I became paranoid. Lena even more so. We talked about installing cameras, changing our routines. I stopped tagging my location, locked down every app. My boss at the cafe let me take night shifts so I could feel safer. But I never felt safe. I started seeing cars I didn't recognize parked down the block from Lena's. Once, I saw someone standing under the broken streetlight across from her place, just watching. When I walked toward him, he walked away. I never got a clear look. In June, Lena and her family left for a wedding in Wisconsin. I stayed behind. They asked me to house sit and water the plants, keep an eye on the dog, Maisie. Their place was quiet. Suburban. 3-bedroom brick home with a fenced backyard and no neighbors directly behind. The kind of place that should feel safe. On the third night, the power went out. Not the whole street, just the house. Everything snapped off. Lights, router, AC, all dead at once. Maisie barked from the kitchen. I grabbed my phone. Battery at 8%. I checked the fuse box. Nothing had tripped. That's when I heard the sound. A door, not slammed, eased open. The kind of slow, careful opening that someone uses when they don't want to be heard. I froze. Maisie growled low in her throat. Her ears were back. She started backing into the hallway. I grabbed the largest knife I could find, one of Lena's mom's chef knives from the counter. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped it. I didn't call the police. I didn't have time. My phone dropped to 7%. No Wi-Fi. 1 bar of service, flickering. I did the only thing I could think of. I opened the laundry closet, stepped inside, and pulled the door shut behind me. Not all the way, just enough to see through the slats. I held the knife in front of me, point out, elbows tight. I listened. Footsteps. Soft. Not rushed. Whoever it was, they weren't worried about being heard anymore. I could hear the floorboards creak in the living room. Then the hallway. Closer. A whisper, Casey. My throat closed. Maisie barked once, then went silent. The footsteps stopped right outside the closet. I held my breath. Then the door began to open. I didn't wait. I lunged forward and shoved the knife out in front of me, blind. I felt it connect. Something warm splattered across my hand. A grunt. Then a body collapsed in the narrow hallway. I staggered out, dropped the knife, and backed away. The man was on his side, bleeding from his stomach. His hand reached toward me. His face was pale. Buzzed hair. Wire glasses. Adam. He didn't die? The paramedics arrived in time. I told the police everything. They believed me, especially once they searched his car. Inside they found printed screenshots of Lena and me together, some taken from a distance. Schedules handwritten for Lena's parents, work hours, grocery routines. A sketch of the house's floor plan. Zip ties, a mask, 2 more knives. He planned to kill Lena and her parents and take me with him. He had even packed a change of clothes for me. My size. He had expected me to go. Adam pled guilty to attempted murder and stalking. I never saw him again. I didn't go to the trial, but I got updates from the victim advocate assigned to me. She told me about his statement, how he claimed he and I had a connection, how Lena manipulated me, how we were soulmates. He said he would do it again if he had the chance. I dropped out of school the following semester. I couldn't sleep in Lena's house anymore. Couldn't even walk through the kitchen without seeing the darkened hallway, hearing that voice say my name. Lena and I tried to keep going. We didn't make it. Not because we didn't love each other, but because I couldn't be in that world anymore. The one with dinner invites and weekend trips and windowed bedrooms. I moved. New number. New apartment. No social media. But sometimes I still dream of it. The soft snap of a door, the slats of the closet, the way he said my name like it belonged to him. And I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't hidden. If I hadn't grabbed the knife. If I hadn't believed the feeling in my gut that someone was coming. Because he was. And he wasn't going to stop.